Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia here. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020. So, this slot last week was taken up by the top 5 players from week 1. Now, I want to alter that format slightly, because I think we can do better than that. So what we're going to turn it into is Team of the Week. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to name 6 players that I think should be in Team of the Week for the week that we are on about. So this week it'll be week 2. And this week it's slightly more difficult and slightly less varied because obviously we saw less teams in action. But obviously we pick out the Philadelphia Fusion, the Florida Mayhem, the Washington Justice and the Houston Outlaws. Spoiler alert, not many Houston Outlaws players in here, if at all. So, yeah. I'm going to pick 2 supports, going to pick 2 tanks, going to pick 2 DPS. And actually, I thought this would be fairly easy for this week considering it's a very small pool of players to pick from. But actually, it's pretty difficult. So, we're going to start with the supports, and the first support actually was one of my easier picks, so this is Gangnam Jin of the Florida Mayhem. Now, I think Gangnam Jin was one of the brightest, if not the brightest lights on the Florida Mayhem this week. I think he has definitely hit the league like I expected him to, coming in from Runaway. He was hitting really good bios, he was really good on the Ana, and honestly, I could see him at a bigger team than the Mayhem, but the Mayhem could develop into that bigger team, so hey. But Gangnam Jin had a really good week for the Florida Mayhem, and he would be my main support. Next up, we have the off support, basically the Lucio, because that's what we saw for most of this weekend, apart from, well, Florida Mayhem, who liked to play Chris on the Brigitte a lot, which is kind of interesting. So, basically, we've got 3 to choose from here. We've got Jexer of the Houston Outlaws, we've got Ark of the Washington Justice, and we've got Funny Astro of the Philadelphia Fusion. Now, they've all got their benefits and drawbacks. I'm not going to go for Jexer. This is the only time I'm going to mention a Houston Outlaws player during this video, so don't get worried about that. I'm not going to go for him, so it's between Ark and Funny Astro. And honestly, this is a way up of different play styles. Funny Astro is much more aggressive. I think I will go with Astro, just because I'm going to the stats here. This is really close. I honestly could pick either, but Funny Astro I'm going to go with just because his stats are really good. I'm going to completely be honest with you here, and this is the only thing that's really separating me between Funny Astro and Ark. And I would love to know your opinions on this. Who would you have in there, Ark or Funny Astro? And if you'd have Jexer in there, say you'd have Jexer in there. And say if you would have Chris in there, who played very little time on Lucio, then say you'd have Chris on there. But I don't think anyone's going to be really voting for Chris in this one. So, this is when we get to some decisions which basically are very easy to make. Off tank, Poco. It's not difficult for me to suggest Poco in off tank for this week. We've had Gargoyle. Gargoyle is my second, really. Elevate was too inconsistent for the Washington Justice. So was Meko for the Houston Outlaws. Meko just really, I don't want to say he seemed like an oddball, because it seems a bit harsh, but it was all disjointed at the Outlaws, so I really can do that. But Elevate was too inconsistent for me, and Gargoyle I just don't think was as good as Poco. Poco was good this week, and you know, Philadelphia, he's keeping Fury on the bench here, and that's phenomenal when you think of that. So I've got to put Poco in the off tank, and his Orisa was really good as well. So Poco is my off tank. Who is my main tank? Now this was a tough one to call. I was toying between Sado and Carrie-Anne. Now, again, for me, Raw with the Washington Justice was a bit too inconsistent. We're not going to talk about the other team of last weekend. And Sado, I'm going to go for Sado through stability here. I think he was the most consistent. I think Carrie-Anne had his ups and downs. But I think Carrie-Anne had more ups than Raw did. But Carrie-Anne was enabled a lot by Gangnam Jin. A lot on the Florida Mayhem during this weekend. Gangnam Jin really did kind of, if they didn't have Gangnam Jin and they had, I don't want to say a more mediocre support player, but, you know, a player not as good as Gangnam Jin, Carrie-Anne would have died a lot more, because he was being enabled by his support line. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Sado here, because I think he's a little bit more consistent this weekend, but to be quite honest with you, in my opinion, the quality of main tank play this weekend has not been that high. Not compared to what we saw in week 1, although week 1 was a bit all over the place. we saw even the best main tank, some of the best main tanks in the league get a bit, ugh. But I think as we go on, I think we'll see better main tank play than we saw this weekend and last weekend. But Sado is my main tank for this week. DPS then. This is where it all gets contentious, isn't it? So hit scan DPS basically is what I'm saying here. And there is some really incredible moments from multiple DPS players this weekend. There really, really is. I ended up toying between Corey and Carpe, and I've gone with Carpe. And the reason I've gone with Carpe is because he showed me that clutch that Carpe had in Season 1, and it's fantastic to see that. It really is fantastic to see Carpe not quite on top of his game right now. I don't think he's quite on top of his game right now, but he is much, much better than he was last year, maybe because of the meta shift. And I think Carpe is only going to show us more of that vintage Carpe that we saw 2 years ago throughout this season. And that is fantastic. And with more DPS players coming up the pipeline for Philadelphia Fusion, Hisu, I think the Philadelphia Fusion are only going to get better during the season, and they look decent already. So, yeah, interesting look. But I've gone with Carpe. You could easily substitute in Corey here. You really could. He would be one of my #1 subs for this team, because Corey was really good this weekend as well. And an honourable mention is BQB at the Florida Mayhem. He did have some points where he was really popping off, but I don't think he can compete with Carpe and Corey. And yeah, let's not talk about the team in green. But moving on to our other DPS, this is basically the May role for most of the time. And I honestly am so torn with this, because I actually don't really know who to pick out of these two. So we've got Stratus, Yaki, Ivy, and Hydration to pick from here, right? Hydration I'm going to rule out. Obvious reasons. Yaki, I was impressed with Yaki at Florida. Throughout this weekend, I think he's been brilliant. Ivy has also been brilliant for the Philadelphia Fusion. Stratus has also been really good for the Washington Justice as well. So this is another one, a bit like the Lucio role, sort of, that I really am struggling to decide. And I think I'm going to go for Stratus. Because I liked Stratus in terms of he enabled his team as well as also popping off himself. Ivy did a really good job of enabling his team. Yaki did a really good job of enabling his team as well. So honestly, these three are really interchangeable. Make your own decisions on it, because Stratus, Ivy, and Yaki were really good all weekend. I think I could put Yaki below Stratus and Ivy. But between Stratus and Ivy, individual performances, there is not much to choose from for me. There is not much to choose from. It would be very easy just to go Ivy because of the Philadelphia Fusion effect, is what I'm going to call it for this weekend. Because basically everyone at the Philadelphia... You could literally say the team of the week is the Philadelphia Fusion. Because their team was really good. The only caveat with Philadelphia Fusion was Alarm. He didn't really hit the ground running brilliantly. That's why Gangnam Jin has basically sealed out my main support slot. But I think I will go with Stratus in terms of that May role. I think he was really good. But there is easily an argument to be made for Ivy and Yaki as well. Hydration, I'm sorry, bud. You just can't put up anything against these players right now, considering where you are. And that's not Hydration's fault. We know how good Hydration can be. It's just... Well, there are a few players on that team that can be right up there at the top of the stats, at the top of everything, can be in teams of the week and stuff like that, but they're not going to be while they're at where they're at. They've got to improve. And yeah, let's not go talking about that team, because honestly, you could go on forever about how bad they were. But let me know in the comments, Funny Astro or Arc for that Lucio role, and Stratus, Ivy, or Yaki for the May DPS, projectile DPS role. I am really interested to see what you guys think on this and what your team of the weeks would be, so let me know in the comments below, and let me know on this format, because I'm willing to do a team of the week every week if you want to see it. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.